All right, now when it comes to the fifth phase of the Sdlc, we were like passing 4 major steps of the Sdlc. So we identified the requirement, we designed the solution, then we code the solution, and in other words, we develop the solution and we test the solution using 4 different techniques. So when the acceptance test is done, when the client is satisfied with the work that the project team has done, then it's the time for the deployment of the system. So deployment means, like in simple words, installing the things, right? So when it comes to the installing a system, there are 4 different techniques that we can go through regarding the installation. All right. So these are the installation techniques or the deployment techniques, which is called the direct deployment.
Anna was in her Concilian dress.
Okay, Susu.
She was full of purple. And but I couldn't find her anywhere.
Oh.
It was the toy one.
You have to find it, Susu. I really don't remember where it is.
I was keeping it in the bedroom.
Oh, just search the bedroom then.
But all of a sudden, it disappeared out of the bedroom.
Search it, you will find it. Right, so there are 4 different types of deployments: the direct deployment, the parallel deployment, and the pilot deployment, as well as the paced deployment. So like, why these 4 techniques are there and what are the differences of these? So the first, we are going to talk about the direct deployment. Right, so the direct deployment means we are going to take away the existing system right away and introduce the new system from this point onwards. Right? If you take a small example, let's say we have introduced a fingerprint system to capture the attendance. So earlier they may have a system of signing on a book of the like what the presenting date or like the arrival time. They put the arrival time and do the signature. When they are leaving, they mention the leaving time and put the signature. So that's how the attendance being maintained. So the purpose is introducing a new system as a fingerprint system. So whenever you arrive in, you can put the fingerprint. So the times will be automatically captured. And when you are leaving, you can put the fingerprint again. So it will be captured again. So if we are going to do the deployment of the new system, which means the fingerprint system, according to the direct deployment, right? So according to the direct deployment, what they are going to do is they are going to take away the sign-in book away, and they are introducing the fingerprint system from this point onwards. So now, the chance is, the fact is, you can experience the new system right away, but the old system is gone. So the benefit is you experience a new thing, but there is a huge disadvantage in case if a new system got a problem or got any particular trouble, then your entire system is collapsed, right? Like you don't have any particular solution for that or backup for that, right? So you will be in trouble. And you can get rid of this disadvantage if you apply the second deployment method, which is called the parallel deployment. So parallel deployment means there is an old system and there is a new system. This old and the new system will be carried out for a certain amount of period, right? So according to our example, the fingerprint system as well as the sign-in book will be maintained for a certain period of time. Thereafter, when the organization is satisfied with the fingerprint system, when they satisfy that the new system is working properly and it does not have any problems with it or any particular defects with it, then they can stop the old system and then they can continue the new system further, right? So that is what you call the parallel deployment, and it will prevent the problem that arise at the direct deployment. In case if the new system got a problem, still they have a backup since they are having the old system at the same time. Right, but the disadvantage is when you are carrying out both the system together, it is a cost consuming as well as time consuming, right? Because you have to maintain two systems at the same time. So cost will be almost double, as well as it will take like if the sign-in take 1 minute, so having the signature and putting the fingerprinter will give you like more than 1 minute. So for some period of time when they are having the parallel deployment, you have to do the same work twice, which is a cost consuming as well as the time consuming. And there is a third and fourth deployment methods as well, which is called the pilot deployment as a third deployment method. Now, when this deployment method arises, what they do is they may have entire organization like this, right? Which is going on the old system. But what they are doing is they choose a particular part of the system or let's say a department of the system and applies the new system to there. And rest of the things are still carried out as the old system. So this particular portion is called the pilot program or like the pilot system. Right now, think about a student information system, which is going to introduce to a school. So if they are going to introduce it using the pilot deployment, what they can suggest, the project team can suggest, let the primary section has the new system and ask them to do their all works using the new system. Let the secondary section have it in the old way. If the primary section gives you a good feedback, and if they are satisfied with the system, then later they can apply that system to the secondary school as well, or the secondary section as well. So which means the pilot deployment, we run it on a specific area or a specific department of the organization. Once we are satisfied with it, we are going to apply it to the entire system. Right? So which is called the pilot deployment. And the last one is called the paced deployment. Now, paced deployment is something like this. Let's say that your system, this is your old system, which consists of 4 parts. And you are building a new system, something like this. Now, what you are going to do is you are going to take one part of this new system, which we call a pace, and replace it with the old system. Right? So part of the system is placed inside an old system. Right? So as an example, if you think about a student information system again, let's say student information system has 3 major components, like admitting a student, admission of a new teacher, and maintaining of the school resources. Those are the 3 parts. So that it is there with the old system. And new system also having this component, but in a much advanced manner. So according to the paced deployment, what we can suggest is, do the teacher admitting part as well as the resource management part according to the old system. Replace the student admitting part from the new system. So that is the student admission pace, right? It's a part of it, a pace of it. So once that student admission is okay, then they introduce the second pace, which is the teacher admission. Right, so now the student admission and the teacher admission is running on a new system. Still the resource management happens in the old, according to the old system. And sometimes later, they are introducing the resource management part as another pace. So the entire old system is replaced by the new system. Right? So likewise, you can give the deployment in for these different ways. Right? So direct deployment, parallel deployment, the pilot deployment, as well as the pace deployment. Okay, people, is that clear? All right, great. As the final step, yeah, pace deploy, the fourth one. Yes, yes. Chanuri, it's like this. Now think about that. As I told you earlier, if you think about this is the old system and it consists of 4 parts. And if you think about this is the new system that they have created. So what they are going to do is they are going to take away, they are going to consider this part, only. So we call this a pace. So this pace will be introduced over here. Right? So rest of the things, these 3 parts are going in the old way. This happens in the new way. So later, they are considering about this part as well. So that pace will also be taken into here. Is that clear? So later, this space can be taken and will be replaced over here. So pace by pace. Right, Chanvi. Great. So as the as the last part, the maintenance of the system is there. That's a very last phase of the Sdlc. The system maintenance will be required on these kind of situations. Developing system to suit new user requirements, right? So there will be new user requirements and that user requirements will be matched. Now in here, new user requirement means some small things, right? Not the major part of things. If it is going to be a major part, it's not going to be the system maintenance. It's going to be one another project, right? So if you take a student information system, let's say when you are entering the data, you need to, earlier you haven't record the NIC numbers of the parents, but now you has a new requirement of having NIC numbers of the parent into your system. So you contact the project team and say, earlier we didn't record this, but we need to record it now. Can you please adjust the things and give us a chance? So they will come and do that small adjustment, right? And if you are, if the school is, if the system need to be updated, let's say with the information of the non-academic staff. So it is going to be a huge part to your system. So then again, they have to go through what is the requirement of that non-academic details and how these details are being stored so far and how that is going to be introduced into the new system, what kind of interfaces and coding should be done, and that should be tested. Then it's going to be deployed, right? It is a major part that is not belongs to the system maintenance. Minor changes, right? Minor user requirements will be maintained. Right, and it says issues that surface with the use of system which were not identified during the system development. Yeah, right. Even when you are testing this, no one may have captured a particular error in the system, right? Since it is, even though it is done in a very 4 different levels into this testing, there can be places where they not capture that there is a particular problem. So on those cases, those errors, those issues can be done or make correct according to the maintenance phase, right? And sometimes we have some system upgrades, so like adapting new technologies kind of things. So there again, the maintenance part is needed. Like if you say like earlier, the student information system runs on the Windows 10. Now you need to update the system into the Windows 11. So you need to match the particular version of yours into the Windows 11. So the technical advancement is going to happen. So due to that, that particular advancement can be arranged. So it is regarding the maintenance, right? So those kind of things can be happen during the maintenance phase. So from there, your Sdlc is fully done. So it has 6 different flow: identification of the requirements, designing the solution, coding the solution, testing the solution, and deploying the software or the solution, and maintenance of the system. All right, so let's quickly write down about these things: deployment of the system. So I think we have written all the things up to the acceptance testing, right? Is it that way, people? Are we done up to the acceptance testing? I mean, like including acceptance testing. Can anyone confirm? All right, so let's start writing from here: deployment of the system. And we'll straight away move to the subheading, direct deployment. That you can mark it as number 1, direct deployment. And you can copy this down. Once you are done with the direct deployment, you can go with the parallel deployment as well. Let me know when you are done, people. All right, people, I had to run for an emergency. I'm sorry. So is everyone done with this? It seems, right? Is there anyone who is still writing? Okay, so moving forward, going to the pilot deployment. And in there, it's better you write the example as well. All right, are we done? One is done. How about others? All right, so moving forward, the final one, phase deployment. Yeah, let's have this. If you are done with the base deployment, let's go with the main heading, or like a sixth phase of maintenance of the system. Okay, once you are done with the phase deployment, go on with these. So you have to write these 3 points as well. So for the moment, I'll keep it like this. So if you are done, you can continue, right? Okay, I'm moving forward. If you miss anything, just let me know, right? Okay, are we done, people? All right, anyone who is still writing? All right, seems everyone is done. So we are moving to the system development lifecycle models, which is the last part of the lesson. So now system development lifecycle model means it's kind of like this, people. If you think about a Sdlc as a shirt, which needs to be tailored. So shirt may have all the, like in any particular shirt will have a collar, have a button, have the sleeves, have the front panel, has a back panel, may have a pocket or kind of things, right? That is the nature of a normal shirt. But when you know how to make a shirt or mend or sew a shirt, you can apply many different styles to it. Or like the way that you are doing it will be differ if you know the subject. So likewise, when you know the system development and when you know what are the phases that need to be done, these phases can be presented or can be executed in different kinds of models, right? So these are the different kinds of models where the system development lifecycle carried out. So there are different kinds of models like waterfall, iterative, incremental, prototyping, spiral. In other than this, there will be agile or rapid development. There are different kinds of system development models. Now in your syllabus, they are just talking about two different models, which is called the waterfall model. And the other one is the iterative incremental model. So waterfall model, if you like go through this diagram, you can see the same 6 stages are there in the waterfall model: identification of requirement, planning the solution, implementing the solution, testing and debugging, development, deployment, and the maintenance. So what's the difference? The difference is, according to this particular model, they have made this model to be happen like one after the other, right? So there is no going back and changing the things to the previous stage once it is done. So once you are identified the requirements, then according to those identification, we'll do the planning. During the planning process, if you realize, okay, there is something for me to, there's something which has been not identified in the identified phase, you can't just go back and do the identification of that thing because it is done, right? So if anyone is going to work with this model, the project team must have the requirements being identified properly and fully, right? So when the requirements are very clear with the system, since it is given as a clear-cut requirements, this model can be implemented. But when it comes to the real world, most of the projects are not going to go parallel with this, because since the softwares are creating for the change in requirements, maybe there will be some new requirements happen during the process of the designing, right? In that case, we may have the flexibility of going up again and do the necessary changes and do the necessary plan in place and come to the solution. But when it comes to the waterfall model, there is no room for something like that. Once the identification is done, it is done. Nothing can be changed regarding that identification. So based on that, solution will be made. Once the solution will be planned. Once the solution is planned, it will be implemented, or it will be developed as planned. So during the development, if you feel, okay, there should be some another thing need to be planned, no, you can't do that when you are following the waterfall model, right? So whatever is being developed will be tested, right? Likewise, it happens like a waterfall. That's why it is called waterfall. Like once something is happened, when it is flows downwards, you can't flow upward because waterfalls are not flowing upward. So it happens one after the other without giving any room of going up. Is that clear, the waterfall model? Yes, people? Pehara, the requirement will be very, Pehara, like if you think about some particular organization, we can't just say like, okay, we are going to create your requirement and you'll stay like right after some certain amount of time, then we'll let you know this is how it's going to happen. The real world does not deal like that, right? Now, when it comes to the system development in real world, we have to give them a particular model. This is the way we are going to do it, right? So if we are like going through a waterfall model, we have to say, okay, we are going to do it on this particular model. So you have to give us the requirements concretely. So once it is given, it cannot be changed. And based on that, the things will be happen. Right now, when it comes to the systems, majorly deal with the forces, right? According to the nature of their organization, when you are receiving something from the forces, they are always very specific about things, right? If they need, it doesn't matter whether they are army or navy or like a marine or base. So they have a certain order of doing things. First, they tell what needs to be done. And once they final it, that is it. They are not going to change those things. So according to that, it needs to be carried out. All right. So that is why different kinds of models are there. Right now, you will realize what happens with the next model. So even a system can be made out of that kind of a model as well. It defines what's the nature of the organization in one hand, right? And the nature of the client in another hand. Is that clear? Right, okay. So the other model that they are talking about is the iterative incremental model, which is something very or like completely different from the waterfall model. Right. So when it comes to the waterfall model, it was very strict model that needs to be carried out. But when it comes to the iterative model, it's a very flexible model to be taken out. So what they are doing is, now the picture over here is not a little bit clear regarding these people. So I'll give you an alternative picture for this, right? So I'll take that picture and talk to you. So this is what happens with the waterfall model. Hold on. Right. So when it comes, I'm sorry, iterative incremental model. So when it comes to here, so they will do an initial planning. So initial planning means the things that are being identified on that particular moment, they will plan it accordingly, right? Then they will identify the requirements regarding that initial planning. Then they analyze and design whatever been identified. Then they implement it, right? Then they test it and they evaluate it. And meanwhile, if they find out any particular other requirements, they do plan it again. They find the requirements, they do the designing, and they do the implementation. So like this is why we call iterative incremental, right? Because the system is going to develop or going to increase in an iterative manner, right? Identify the requirements for the moment and develop it, analyze it, develop it, test it, and evaluate it. Then again, if any other or like further or like any additional requirements are being captured, then again analyze it, implement it, test it, develop it, then goes like that. So these iteration may happen like more than one time. So like what we can guarantee is end of the iterations, the system is being implemented or system is being developed fully, right? So then you can move to the deployment part, right? So it is a very flexible method, unlike the waterfall model. So if the organization's nature is fixed with this, then it is okay, right? If you think about the software releases in the world, it mostly happen according to this iterative incremental model. Think about the Windows operating system. At the very early days, they have identified some particular requirements for an operating system, so they develop it. Then they release that particular version to be used. So later, there are new requirements being emerged during the usage of it. So they have it and plan it and design it again, and they release a new version. So it is very flexible when it comes to the client side and as well as the development part. People, is that clear? The iterative incremental model. Okay, so with that, we can end this particular lesson. So let's write these things down as quickly as possible so we can start the new lesson by next week. Okay, so have this heading, System Development Lifecycle Models. Yeah, you better write these things by showing them how these kind of things are happening, like to indicate there are many different models. Right, are we done? Yes, people, can we move forward? Okay, so moving towards the waterfall model. So have the subheading waterfall model. Yeah, you need to write down the entire part, people. They have said it in a very summarized manner. So write it down and leave the space to draw this diagram. Right? Okay, are we done? Okay, anyone who is still writing? All right, so moving forward, please leave some space for you to draw this diagram to your book. And yeah, let's write about the iterative incremental model first. So I have this subheading. Then I'll show you what to be written. Then I will send that diagram to the WhatsApp group so you can copy it down, since there are little misdrawings in the books, right? So have the heading iterative incremental model. And under that, you may write about these things. Yeah, these 3 lines. Then after, you can draw the diagram that I'm sending to your WhatsApp group. So copy these things down, these 3 lines. So let me know when you are done. Okay, are we done, people? All right, so if you are done, you can leave the session. I'm sending the picture to the WhatsApp group, so you have to copy that down to your books. So by next week, we are going to start the new lesson, which is the third lesson, which is internet and email, which is another interesting lesson about internet and email. And most of the things that you know, there are a lot of things that you know about the email and internet. So I'll see you on next week for the very same time to discuss about internet and email. And I'm going to end the session for today from here, right? So I will send you the picture to your WhatsApp group. So please copy it down to your book. So we'll meet on next week to do the new lesson. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a very nice weekend.